Hi, everyone. Welcome to the WeShape podcast.
Hello. What's the giggle for?
Well, they're like, go. I'm like, we're going. Okay, here we
Boom,
go.
out the gates.
Yeah. How you guys doing?
Very good. I had a funny morning, though.
I'm ready. Let's just jump right in today. I can feel I want to share that the intention of this episode is we're going to talk about beliefs today.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about. But I'd like to hear about your morning.
It's a serious topic.
And you haven't told me any of this, so I'm hearing for the first time.
I'm actually, it's funny. If you're watching this on YouTube, I hope there's no like super in close-ups, because this morning before I took a shower, I was like, I'm going to do a beauty routine that I always do, which is I shave my face. And not everybody does that.
Here we go. Let's do it.
But it's a great little trick. And it if you want to put on moisturizer or makeup, if you wear makeup, it helps kind of with application and smoothness.
I shaved my face this morning too.
Right on, dude.
Fist bump.
But there's a name for it.
I bet you did a better job than I did, though.
There's a name for it.
I think it's like dermaplaning if you see a professional, which
Okay.
I was like, I'm going to do this myself, obviously, right? So I just bought the thing off Amazon and just went for it. And the hack job, I am bleeding from I like had to do little tissue papers like in Home Alone. Like
my
I
God.
literally with the aftershave, it was bad. There's some stinging happening and some abrasions on my face. So
you can't go
no
fast.
extreme close-ups today, guys. Can't do it.
You
You
told
should
me
have
about
given
this
me a lesson.
before, and I hurt myself, so I never did it again.
It looks like I took a little spill on the playground. I have an abrasion on my forehead.
Patience is the key. And I promise there will be some good content on this podcast, but I shave with a straight razor, right? And it took me a long time to figure out how to do that. But I had to keep figuring out all the things where I couldn't do that. Like, don't do it after a workout because you'll be a little shaky. And then you'll be like, oh no. And, don't do it when you're too tired, right? Don't do it in bad lighting.
Yeah,
So,
if you're not a practice shaver, don't do it right when you wake up
Yeah.
in the dark, kind of like before a shower. It's a bad idea. You're gonna end up having some mistakes and some ouchies.
But alas, this episode is not about shaving. This
Luckily.
episode is about beliefs, and it's really important because at WeShape, Katie, would you like to tell them the WeShape way, the process that we take people through?
Yeah, when we first launched the product, the intention behind the product was create an extremely customizable experience that held a really high standard for movement, that focused on balance, coordination, strength, and flexibility.
All right, you did it. Nice.
And so just creating the highest quality product with the most customization at an affordable price for people, so that people didn't feel like they had to hire a personal trainer. So we accomplished that. And when we launched it, I remember going, this is not going to be the whole thing. Having people connect with their body in a new way is super important. But I also realized we had to connect with our mind in a new way, and we had to connect with community in a new way. And so outside of the product, a lot of the things we talk about are beliefs, their intentions, and how we connect with community. So the WeShape way is those four pillars, right?
Movement, community, beliefs, and intentions.
And our thought is that when you come in here for movement, and then you connect with community, and then you evaluate your beliefs, your entire intentions will shift from,
right.
I need to lose weight, I need to fit into these pants, I need to meet this stereotype, I need to meet these expectations, I'll feel happy when I'm, to I've learned to connect with myself. I've learned radical self-acceptance. I've learned self-kindness. I've learned connection with other.
I've learned to take care of myself.
Yeah, it's a very different intention. And we used to start with intention, create a new intention. And as we were going down that path, we realized, actually, people come to us for a workout.
Yeah.
And then it's so much more. And then they kind of dip
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then you sounded like Dave Chappelle right there. I just want to call that out, which huge Dave Chappelle fan. But my point is that you connect with community, and then you kind of wait, what is this belief stuff? Maybe you're listening to the podcast, maybe you're reading one of our book suggestions, and then before you know it, the entire reason why you came has completely shifted. And so today I wanted to talk about that beliefs pillar, because the belief is where the belief drives the behavior. And I think that's really important to sit in that for a moment. Every behavior that you exhibit in your life is connected to a belief, which could be conscious or unconscious. And so I think it's really important to remind ourselves about that. And I think that I have a couple things I'll share.
Can I lead in
Yeah,
on something?
please.
You said something powerful. You said to change the behavior, you can change the belief. So many people think you need to change the behavior by just focusing on the behavior. But if you just keep doing that, you'll just slide back into the behavior because the underlying belief hasn't changed. And I had a beautiful example of this in my Q&A call yesterday, where we had a lady come on the call, and she's like, I've never joined one of these calls. I signed up for the program, and I'm really struggling to be motivated. right? And I was like, ooh, motivation's one of these words that gives us this instant, like, okay, there's something there. And I said, okay, well, why are you here? You know, what's your, she, oh, I just want to like get more tone and stuff, you know, and I just want to like, like, and I was like, okay, when you act from a place of self-judgment, I want to change how I look so that others will see me and value me, then you're always going to feel like you don't have the motivation because it's coming from this negative emotion. So then even when you think about doing your workout, you're doing it because you're punishing yourself, not because you're taking care of yourself. And if we can just hold the lens of, I'm showing up to my workouts out of self-care, just like you when you're brushing your teeth, then the whole thing changes. And I'm like, I could tell she heard it. But then I also said, you know what, beliefs take a long time to do this. So let's build some accountability partners and some accountability strategies just to get the ball rolling. But the whole purpose of that was this. She came in for a workout. Then she decided to get on a call and lean into community. And in that community, we examined her beliefs. And now she gets to work on her intentions, which then fuel up to her being able to do the workouts, right? So that's the process that we're trying to get people to go through.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So listening to the podcast, we have amazing guests on that kind of poke at our beliefs, right? Around, food, around diets, around, exercise plans. Like, so listening to the podcast, we often have a number of phenomenal, my goal one day is to have a book club here.
Mm-hmm. What's your goal with everything?
I know. I do try
That's
to
true. You put book clubs in everything.
I do. Because I feel like being able to look at things in a different way and read about a new perspective just allows you to connect with yourself and your own beliefs in a really meaningful way. So I want to start today because I feel like one of the people that I love reading about is Byron Katie. She's sort of like the person, in my opinion, who does a lot of deconstruction of beliefs. And she, it's kind of like this idea of like when you suffer enough in your life there might be like something in your life that you're really struggling with. And then you try to change a behavior, change this, and then you realize, I actually really need to evaluate my belief around this thing, and the thing just keeps happening. It's like the universe just keeps giving you the same thing. And it actually reminded me, I'm gonna out myself here with I'm total 90s music fan. Actually, I think this album came out in 2000, but this morning I was listening to the Red Hot Chili Peppers as I was taking my daughter to school, and I listened to this lyric that made a lot of sense. And it made me think about what we were going to be talking about in terms of like the cycle of suffering and suffering means, I want to just clarify, that means something different for everybody, right? We can all go through different levels of suffering. It's not just like one definition, in my opinion. But they have a line from their Californication song. It says, "Destruction leads to a very rough road, but it also breeds creation." And
that's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you, Anthony Kiedis. But my point is that we kind of go through these patterns over and over and over again. And it's completely applicable to weight loss culture, to exercise culture, to the health and wellness industry. If I do this one thing, my body will change. I'll be happy. Oop, it didn't work. If I do this new thing and I'll change my body and then I'll be happy. Ooh, it didn't work. It's like that's destructive. And you'll go through that destructive cycle enough to a point where you go, I want to do something else. And that will breed the creation of something new, which is ultimately a new belief system that drives a different behavior.
Right.
So that's what WeShape is here to do, is to offer the opportunity for that destructive pattern to breed something else, to breed a new path that brings you closer to you.
Yeah.
And I know that's really complicated and heavy and like, what does that all mean? But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say that the health and wellness industry has helped a lot of people over a number of years, but it's also done a lot of harm. And we used to be a part of that harm. We used to be a part of that sort of try this and get this, try this and get that, buy this and do this, get this. And it doesn't lead anywhere. And so
the harm you're referring to, sorry, I just want to be super clear with this because I want people to hear this. Like, the harm you're referring to is when the industry says, you're not good as you are. And if you only got to here, to XYZ, to the ideal body, that you will be able to be happy finally.
Just put your credit card
Just put your credit card right here and buy our product and it'll make you feel happy. And you're right. The fitness industry is completely pervasive at that. And it's like the more aggressive the timelines are or the promises are, the more likely they are to make sales and stuff. And absolutely, we were the company that was being like, hey, lose weight and get six-pack abs and everything, until you said, this isn't serving people. This is keeping people trapped. in a system that makes them feel lousy about themselves. And when they feel lousy about themselves, they don't take action out of self-care. They take action out of self-judgment, and it's never, ever going to work. And so I think it's important to note that you have a background in psychology.
Well,
and part
developmental psychology.
Yeah, and so that's part of where I think this foundation came from. So maybe we can jump back over to Byron Katie and your thoughts around kind of how you got to this place of realizing, oh my God, these beliefs are keeping me stuck. They're not helping me. They're not serving anybody right now.
Well, in our old business model, I had the belief that I was helping people because I was getting them to move their body. Mm-hmm. But I never zoomed out enough to really understand that I was actually a part of that toxic cycle and that I was participating in certain beliefs that weren't serving people. So when I paused and evaluated those beliefs and evaluated that system, I said, I don't want to be a part of this system anymore. I don't believe this anymore. And from that came a completely different business, came completely different actions, came completely different intentions. But it wasn't until I paused to understand I'm subscribing to this belief. And this belief no longer serves me. It's destructive. And it got destructive to a point where it's like, it was very bizarre because from the outside looking in, our business had made the Inc. 500 3 times. We had a team of 40 people working for us. We had great success. But I was deeply unfulfilled inside. And I was like, what am I doing in my life that's bringing this unfulfillment when I'm checking all the boxes and my Instagram life looks so amazing? Oh, I'm participating in this belief system I had no idea I was. Mm-hmm. I can't do that anymore. And then everyone, not everyone here, but like everyone out there, if that makes sense, like everyone, like I was going against the grain of society now. You're going to leave all that, but now you're going to take financial risk. You're going to invest in this other thing. You're not going to have I think people out there were floored with that idea, not people like that I personally knew and people in the company. Everyone in the company in here was like, yeah, let's do this other thing. It feels way better. But I felt like, and that's so funny that I was so worried about that. Like people I didn't even know. You know what I mean? Like everyone who I knew was like, amazing. And this team was like, let's do this. Yeah. I was like, but society is telling me this isn't the way, but my gut's telling me it is. And so it just was like, the simple action of zooming out and evaluating the system and the belief that I was a part of and asking myself if that belief brought me suffering, brought me challenge, or if that belief brought me ease and satisfaction and fulfillment. And when I zoomed out, I went, I am not getting satisfaction, serenity, peace, fulfillment at all. I have to change the belief, even if that belief is against societal norms.
It's no matter what, right? What you're saying is, you had a fitness business that was highly successful. You were being praised because of the success. People were losing weight. People were doing getting the outcome that we were after. And, people were praising the way that you looked in your body. And inside, you're like, I am miserable. I'm constantly judging myself. I feel like I'm trapped in self-judgment. I'm overthinking everything related to my food, to my fitness routine. And I feel miserable inside.
Well, can I pause you for a second on that? Yes, that was it. But it was actually more simple than that. It was, I have all of this, but when I stopped for just a moment to ask if I feel good about it inside, I couldn't say yes. And I didn't know why, because everything outside of me told me that it should. And so I think what we talk a lot about this here, like cracking the door to curiosity, is what leads to the idea that beliefs can change, which then changes behavior. I just said I'm going to get curious as to why I don't feel 100% inside. And that cracking of that door then led to all the things you're talking about. Yeah. It didn't just flood me one day. It was like, are you going to pause?
Beliefs are a slow process for sure.
So it was just that simple, like when I pause and go, like I'm doing all of the things, but when I really get quiet with myself for a little while, do I feel peace and contentment inside, or am I just saying that I do because I've checked all the boxes? And that's a big difference.
It's a big difference.
It's an ouch. It's a big ouchie when you sit with it and then you go, and it's harder when you are checking all the boxes and you're getting validation.
Right. That's where I wanted to go with this. Is that people have that belief that if you get the body you want, if you get the life, the Instagram life, that it will make you fulfilled on the inside. And I think the most important thing that we can say over and over again on this podcast is we've tried it and it doesn't make you feel fulfilled inside. What makes you feel fulfilled inside is developing a deep connection with yourself, caring for yourself, not neglecting yourself, not showing up to your workouts because you want to look differently so that you can get praise and external validation, but showing up for your workouts because you want to feel great, right? And I think when people haven't had the experience of achieving what they think will make them happy, there's always that hope that if I do this, then I'll feel that way. And I just want to kibosh that right now. It will not work if it's coming from a place of self-judgment. It will not work.
And I want to take what you said right there about like showing up for the workouts to feel great, because sometimes I show up for my workouts and I don't feel great. So I would like to almost reframe that and say I'm showing up as an act of connection with self, because like I want to continue to deeper that connection with self. We live in a society, in a culture that tells us connect with this outside value, connect with this value outside of yourself. And when you connect with that value inside, you will feel good. And it's completely backwards. I believe that people need to retrain their minds and their beliefs to connect more deeply with themselves, and then they can connect with the outside world in a more meaningful way. Yeah. So this is years of stepping back, zooming out, taking a moment, and connecting with yourself in a new way. And it starts with cracking the door to curiosity and evaluating the beliefs and the systems that you're a part of, and deeply evaluating if those beliefs serve you. And you just have to get quiet, though, because everyone told me that my beliefs served me.
Right.
And I think what's important that you're saying is, if there's something in your life that's causing you, like, to move away from yourself, maybe you're feeling stressed, maybe you're feeling anxious, maybe you're feeling upset, whatever it may be, and that shows up in your life over and over again, that's a great place to crack that door for curiosity and say, what is the belief that's causing this to show up in my life over and over again? Because if you try to change the behavior and the belief never changes, it's short-lived. It's short-lived. This is what happens with workouts. You go, I'm going to start working out, I'm going to get motivated, and I'm going to do it. And then you do it for a little while, and it kind of feels decent and whatever, and you get praise and everything like that. And then the belief of I'm not enough comes in, and that negative feeling makes you go, and then you don't show up for your workouts anymore because you're judging yourself. You don't have as much self-esteem as you'd like to be able to do that, right? Because when we care for ourselves, we show up for ourselves. When we don't care for ourselves, we don't show up for ourselves. And I think it's so important just to recognize that it starts with these things that show up in your life over and over again, and you go, crack that door to curiosity. Why am I doing these things? What's the belief that's making me do this over and over again?
I'm
stuck.
Guilty of this, and I don't know if you want to chime in here, Nina, but
Definitely.
I'm guilty of this idea. It's like the universe will continue to bring the same crisis in a different package. And what's tricky about that is when the packaging looks different, you think it's different. Yeah. And so just pausing to also find those common connections of like, this is the same thing in a different package. This is the same thing in a different package. And I just kind of tell myself, okay, get curious with that. And is there a different direction that the universe is asking you to go here? Like, are you it's really complicated because we're so zoomed in, right? And sometimes I'm just like, zoom out of your life, Katie, and this will be easier, but it's so hard to do it. So I understand it's way easier said than done, but our attachment to these beliefs is what keeps us stuck in those things. So that's why I always say, get curious, crack the door. Maybe there is a different way. And when we do that, then we can loosen the grip on that attachment to that belief, and then more possibility comes. So this is actually a perfect time for me to read the quote, because Byron Katie talks about the attachment to beliefs. So this is her book, Loving What Is. 4 Questions That Can Change Your Life by Byron Katie. She has a number of books. All of them are amazing. They all say the same thing, but in different ways. So
maybe you could just give us a quick, just a quick Byron Katie story, like just who she is, like where she came from, how she got to there. I think it's helpful for people to maybe know like the process.
Oh gosh. Okay, I can do that.
Do you want me to do that? Or you want
No,
to do
I can do it. I can do it. So she was a person who I think was struggling greatly in her life. Mm-hmm. I think she ended up in some sort of, I don't know if it was like a facility, like maybe it was, I don't know if there was like some sort of rehabilitation facility, but I don't know what it was for, if that makes sense. If she just needed if it was like a therapeutic setting, I don't know what it was. And I remember in her book saying that she didn't even feel worth sleeping on the bed, so she was sleeping on the floor.
Yeah, like really struggling, like depression, anxiety,
yes.
Exactly.
And she got to like a really, really low point in her life. And for whatever reason, one day when she was laying on the floor, she had some sort of huge epiphany that basically allowed her to understand that all of the things that she thought that were true, that she was attaching to, could actually potentially not be true.
Right. Like I'm suffering because of my beliefs. And so I think I need to change my circumstances. But if I change my beliefs, the suffering will stop regardless of my circumstances.
And I think then she sort of went on this journey of developing inquiry, because I think what she's trying to say is there's always another belief available to you. There's always another belief available to you. So like I kind of look at it like a deck of cards. Like if you fan out a deck of cards and someone picks a card and that card is like this belief, and then you're like, how does that belief make you feel?
Like you try it on and see.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, well, there's more in the deck, right? And you can keep picking the beliefs, and then that's what I'm saying. Beliefs are so personal, because a belief that you guys might have might be a very different belief than I have, and your belief might cause you great joy, and that belief might cause me great suffering. And so I think it's also important to remember that beliefs are really personal. And so if somebody else believes something that doesn't serve you, that's okay. And that was my example in the opening of this podcast, was outside society had told me that these beliefs that I had that I was adhering to served me, but they didn't feel like they served me on the inside. So I think the premise of her work is inquire. And you can go look her up online. She has these worksheets that you can fill out. And if you're filling out a worksheet will be based on one belief. She has really encouraged people, until you actually embody the feeling of a new belief that better serves you, you keep doing the worksheet on the same topic. So I think she even said she had done a worksheet on her mom every day for over a year before she felt because there's like,
she told us she did 1,000 of the same worksheet on the same belief before she felt like she had repetitions. And I think this ties back to the movement side, which is when we practice movement, we repattern our neural connections to strengthen that movement. And the more we practice it, the better we get at it, right? And so if we have a belief and we keep hitting a wall with that belief and it keeps not serving us, then we say, okay, examine the belief, and here's how I want to reshape that belief. And the first few reps are going to feel really bad, right? And it's going to take a lot of reps. And eventually, all of a sudden, the circumstance in your life happens again. You go to the belief that you're originally inclined to go to, and you go, wait, oh, I see it. And then you go to the one that you really want, and it gets easier and easier as time goes on.
Well, and the difference that I've noticed in the work that she does when you're doing the worksheets is you can do the worksheet, and you can come to the conclusion of a different belief in your mind. But that's not really the goal. The goal will be to embody that belief system and have a shift in how you feel. Do you see the difference there?
If you guys aren't watching, I just want to point out that every time Katie says embody, she lifts her hands up and rotates them upward. So
it's an embodiment.
It's an embodiment.
It's a feeling for sure.
But do you see the difference?
Yes.
I can do the worksheet and then be like, okay, just think positively. But when you embody a belief,
Big time.
then you actually act from that belief.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So one of the things I was going to read from her book. So anyway, go to her website and I think you can download
There's
the
like an
worksheets
app
for free.
even.
It's a free app. Yeah.
Okay. So she said, meeting your thoughts with understanding is the title of this chapter. I'm just going to read the first opening line. A thought is harmless unless we believe it. It's not our thoughts, but the attachment to our thoughts that causes suffering. Attaching to a thought means believing that it's true without inquiring. A belief is a thought that we've been attaching to, often for years. So what she's saying a lot in those few sentences.
That's worth like rewinding, listening to, and studying for the rest of your life, because that's super powerful.
Yes. I can't emphasize those things enough. It's like the attachment to something being true without inquiry. Do you understand how many of us, including myself, every day just hear something and go, that's my belief, without even saying, is that true? And does that belief serve me in my life? We do that all day. I do it myself all day.
Yeah.
So her work allows the pause, and her work is practice. And I think her work is just practice and meditation when it really comes down to it.
Yeah.
But it's really guided meditation in the sense of like this guided time that you give yourself to evaluate beliefs that no longer serve you. And yeah, she did 1,000 worksheets, but she embodied a new perspective of her mother that was, I think, probably a lifelong source of suffering from her. So that's worth 1,000 worksheets to me. If you can have a belief that has not served you for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, if you can do that and then embody a new perspective, to me, those worksheets are absolutely worth the time. And that's why I want to focus so much on beliefs here at WeShape, because when we take the time to practice that, our whole world can change, and it's not just about doing the workout.
I think too, like, I mean, I've done a worksheet from Byron Katie, and it's been such a privilege. And I think when you use the term worksheet for people who maybe haven't like been familiar with her work, it might seem like a lot of work, but it's actually really only 4 questions.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I'm like, worksheet, like that makes me think like I have to get a textbook out, I got to sit down, I'm studying, it's a whole thing. But really, it's actually just asking yourself 4 questions, and so you can do a worksheet pretty quickly.
Like, I'd say 5-10 minutes max.
Yeah,
to be able
I mean,
to
like, obviously you want to
examine
dedicate time to it because it's important, but it's not like this, like, I have to now spend the rest of my life doing this. Like, it's a really pretty short practice that you can definitely fit into your daily life, and it's so beneficial.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about beliefs, it's such a big topic. We could talk about this for hours. We're all still in this work ourselves.
I don't
like
think
we
it
haven't.
never
I don't think it
ends,
ever
never
actually.
ends. And so I like to bring up Byron Katie because I feel like if we don't know where to start, or when I get really stuck, I just go print her worksheet. Well, I actually print like dozens of them because you're not going to, unlikely that it's going to change in one
Girl,
worksheet.
get the app, save a
I know.
tree.
Actually, I think I do have the app. But my point is like I wanted to be able to give people a tool today. If they're like, what do you mean? You know, where do we start?
How
And
do you do that?
she was actually my very first entry point to evaluating belief systems.
Yeah.
And it was so helpful because she had such practical application for do a worksheet. Okay, how do you feel after the worksheet? Well, I still feel the same. Do another worksheet on the same thing, right? And so it was just it's a guided practice that's very simple, that gives people a tool, and I still use it sometimes myself, and probably could use it even more, honestly.
It's
so,
amazing
We
to have
all
an
can.
action step. I think like when we talk about things like this, it can be like really big and esoteric and like, what are we talking about? And to have an action step to be able to be like, oh, I can do this thing and see how I feel afterwards. Because cracking the door to curiosity, I think, is a super powerful avenue in life. But like, how do you start that if you've never done it before? So much of what we think is true, I'm using air quotes, because it's what you think, so it seems true. It's in your brain.
Yeah, you know, the well-known author Eckhart Tolle, who had this, you know, spontaneous enlightenment moment, which basically means I'm no longer attaching to what I think my life should look like. I'm just present, right? And presence is inherently acceptance. And this is a system for you going through those beliefs that are causing you suffering, because where your suffering comes from is believing that your moment shouldn't be what it is, right? Believing that right now isn't supposed to be like it is. And we have to accept it. And Eckhart Tolle said, Byron Katie gives you a 4-step process to go from suffering to finding that peace, presence, and acceptance.
One thing Byron Katie said, because we were fortunate enough to be able to do a workshop with her, which was such a blessing, but she said all suffering, all pain, you know, whatever, is either imagined pain from the future and then there's remembered pain from the past. And that if you actually check in, and obviously there are hard moments in life, I don't mean to discount that at all, but if you check in with your body right this very, very second, and I don't mean 2 seconds from now or what you're thinking about tomorrow, but like this instant, are you okay? Are you still breathing? You know, all that. And that really gave me like a gift. I was like, whoa, I am. Like, there are some things I'm worried about. And there are some things from my past that really hurt too.
Yeah.
And right in this very, very infinite little moment, I'm good.
Yeah.
And I think I also don't want to make people believe that like doing this work means that life is going to be rainbows and butterflies.
No.
She's actually talking about offering people a perspective for, like you said, accepting what is.
Yes.
And this world is inherently full of suffering on so many levels. And this is not a pass to just be like, oh, I'm not an advocate for, you know, other people in this world. Like, it's not about that.
Not the toxic positivity angle of like, just be happy, just move on.
No, this is about checking in with you, understanding your belief, deciding if it serves you, using a tool to help you bring peace and acceptance to that belief. And peace and acceptance can actually drive a lot of amazing behaviors like advocacy or service of others, or it can really take people down a really amazing path. Sometimes when we get so stuck in our own narrative, we're actually not a service to anyone. And I actually think some of this work can actually free our mind to have peace and acceptance, to then be able to have capacity to offer service and compassion and advocacy for other, which ultimately I think if all of us human beings could get to some sort of level of that, the world would be a very different place. But I do believe it starts with this.
Yeah. Well, here's something that I like to remember is I think that underneath suffering is usually anger. And underneath anger is usually sadness. And underneath sadness is usually acceptance. And underneath acceptance is usually presence. And underneath presence is joy, right? Compassion. And we can't offer others what we can't offer ourselves. And so we have to go through that process of examining those beliefs, going through those emotional layers to get us to a place where we can find that acceptance around that belief and find that joy again. And then we find another thing that frustrates us, and we start all over again at the
many
top.
layers.
You know?
Oh, it just goes on forever.
It goes on forever. I've had beliefs that I felt didn't serve me, and I found layer 1, and it was this thing, right? And then I'm like, oh, cool, I conquered it. Blah! It happens again. Layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5, and usually it just starts at your adulthood and just drips backwards into the patterns that you were conditioned in childhood. So give yourselves a lot of grace when you're examining your beliefs.
Practice.
Be very patient, and it's not all an easy road, and it's worth it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I say this on a lot of episodes, but people join WeShape for a workout and then surprise, you've been bamboozled. It's so much more.
Don't read the fine print.
Yeah, it's so much more because when we learn to connect with our body in a new way, when we have community that supports that new connection, I believe that's where infinite possibility lie. And we had that intuitive eating psychologist on, Dr. Dowsett.
I was like, which one?
Yeah, who was talking. One of the things that stuck with me when we had her on was she was kind of deciding which area of psychology she was going to go in. And she had discovered that across all areas, there was a common thread in human beings, and it was dissatisfaction with body and self.
Yeah.
And so she went, ooh, if I go into this world, I will likely have a lot of impact because that impacts all the others. And so I think that starting with connection with body is a really amazing place to start, because it is that door that it can be open to greater connection with self, and greater connection with self can create greater internal peace, satisfaction, fulfillment.
And give you the capacity to have greater connection with other.
Like psychological and physical wellness.
Yes.
Which is what our ultimate goal is, I think.
Yeah. So I'm really glad that we could talk about this today. I think that beliefs are super important. And I'm really glad that once people come in and get the workout, and then they start connecting with the community, and then they start listening to the podcast or reading some of the books we suggest, I see people going, oh, I don't have to subscribe to that old belief. I'm worthy as I am in the body that I am today. There's nothing about me that needs to change in order to feel that worth. And I have infinite possibility and beliefs if I'm ready to go there. So,
Well said.
yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. And if you have any questions or comments or want to just connect with us, you can reach us at podcast@WeShape.com. We love reading the emails from our community. We're on all social platforms at WeShape, which is all movement-related content, at WeShape Podcast, where you can get clips from the podcast. Any final words before we go?
Yeah, if you guys like this and it helped you out, drop us a review. We love getting some reviews, and reach out. We love to hear from people.
Absolutely.
Take good care, everyone. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.